Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is a special D23 wrap-up show for Schmurz August 12th, 2024. On the show today, Jim Hill and Jim Schull were in the audience for the D23 park announcements and join us from Anaheim, California to record the show. Let's get started by bringing in the men who disregard the phrase recipe for disaster because they're experienced enough at this point to just eyeball all the ingredients. It's Jim Hill and Jim Schull. How's it going, fellas?
It is going great, Len. Though, to be clear here, Mr. Schull and I didn't actually get into the Honda Center for the park's presentation.
Security did their job? Oh my God, that's amazing. Congratulations, folks.
Yeah.
The Groucho Marx nose and the mustache didn't work this time, Len. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I would have gone through, but no one mistakes Mr. Hill, no matter what.
Yeah, okay.
He's sweet.
I think the your idea to go stacked one on top of each other in a trench coat was maybe your...
I told you. I told you. Next time.
Right.
Do it my way next time.
All right, so let's jump right into it. And let me just say, as somebody who was watching this, man, what a great D23 this was. Tons of new projects announced. And I think some of it was even a surprise to us. So we're going to go over all of this news, including what we know. And from your guys' perspective, not only what we don't know, but let's talk about what it means in the long term. And to get started, just a quick reminder, all of these things are supposed to be open in the next 5 years. That's what we were told, so we're going to go with that. And let's start with Walt Disney World. Okay, so I think the big news here, Cars Land is coming to the Magic Kingdom with 2 Cars-themed attractions coming to Frontierland. It looks like from the concept art, Jim, one of these is similar to Radiator Springs in DCA, but through the American frontier. Did I get that right?
Well, sort of. I mean, what's intriguing about the Cars thing that's coming to Florida is they're selling it as rather than visiting Radiator Springs, it's a road rally. And you're out, running through the wilderness, out beyond Big Thunder. In fact, what's interesting about the concept art that they shared was that you can literally see Big Thunder in the distance, but the foreground is filled with a stylized wilderness that's very much in the Cars aesthetic, with things, butts and that sort of, or buttes that look like car parts.
Radiator Cap, Mesa, all of the usual suspects are there in the renderings.
And so do we think that this is going to be a similar ride to Radiator Springs? Because, Jim Schull, as you pointed out as we were texting yesterday, it rains in Florida and it doesn't rain as much in California. So the same ride mechanism wouldn't make sense, right?
Well, it can make sense, but for example, Test Track is a grandfather of this ride system, which eventually became Radiator Springs Racers at DCA.
Sure.
But it took a long time for that ride system in Florida to be, I don't know, weatherized. Is that the right term?
It's still one of the least reliable rides in Walt Disney World, which is why I don't think they're gonna use that specific ride mechanism.
Got it. Okay.
So and then the other thing is what's the other ride supposed to be? Jim Schull, any ideas?
Well, I don't know. They're a little bit vague on that, as far as, except for the fact they said it's going to be something very much for children, a lower tech, family friendly. So that leads us to, probably a simpler ride system, like even a bus bar. I don't know exactly. Again, it's surprising. And I was hoping today in the pavilion, maybe to see a little bit more than the artwork that was shared last night. But no, we're still waiting for models or any more information about exactly where in Frontierland this version of Cars Land will land.
Okay. So since you brought it up, that's the thing I wanted to go to next. One of the things we don't know is the specific location of these rides, but there are really only 2 places it could go. One is, Jim Hill, to the north of Big Thunder Mountain. This is the Beyond Big Thunder area.
There we go.
And that area is definitely big enough for something the size of Radiator Springs and DCA, which is 11 acres, right?
Just because I have nothing to do with my life, I did a study last night. After I got back,
you did. You were texting us the overlay of
sleep is overrated. What do you say? But DCA's version of Cars Land, the complete version, would fit back behind Big Thunder.
Yep.
Now it would take up essentially the entire area. It doesn't leave you room for the other thing that was announced that we'll get to shortly.
Right. So Jim Hill, what's the other place that Radiator Springs could go?
Well, that's the intriguing part of the piece of concept art that they shared, because they actually showed the road rally cars bouncing across a piece of water. So that they, and what's on the other side of Rivers of America? It's Tom Sawyer's Island,
Right.
which, let's be honest, has been an underutilized piece of real estate at the Magic Kingdom for many, many years at this point. And more to the point, during the show at the Honda Center,
Yep.
they actually had Larry the Cable Guy had recorded chunks of dialogue as Mater, and Mater was talking about his favorite thing about road rallying was bouncing through the water and getting stuck in mud holes. So that paints a very interesting picture about where this thing could potentially go.
Yeah, so the question it raises, though, is, if they go and start to carve away or close Tom Sawyer's Island, are they going to get the same reaction that the fans had when they announced Mr. Toad's Hall was going to be closed? I mean, do they still have pitchforks and flaming torches available?
I don't think so, for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think this Cars Land absolutely makes sense for Rivers of America for a couple of reasons. One is Tom Sawyer Island and the Liberty Bell Riverboat are both low capacity, unpopular attractions. Replacing those two things with two very popular attractions is a win-win. But Jim Schull,
Yes.
if I'm keeping my Disney business cap on, that also allows me to keep that big expansion area north of Big Thunder, that 11 acres, for another project for 2030 and beyond. Because remember, we're going to eventually get an Epic Universe Phase 2, and Disney will have to counter that. This allows them to expand even again.
Well, this is true.
But let me ask you this question. When I was listening to the live stream, it seemed like there was and I'll describe this charitably, a muted reaction in the audience to this announcement. How did it go over for you guys?
You're not wrong. I think that people, and this is what's been interesting with the last two D23s, that they had gotten so much blue sky, and you remember, these are the people who told, what they're doing Encanto, and then on the other side of that Coco, and then on the other side of that Villains, and the notion to suddenly be thrown Cars, but not Cars Land from California. It kind of, in an audience full of Disney fans, were kind of like, it's like, hey, it's liverwurst. You like cold cuts, right?
Exactly. Yeah, because you guys had heard before the show that Cars was coming to the Magic Kingdom, and I said, I swear to God, if we're getting Radiator Springs in the Magic Kingdom for Beyond Big Thunder, I'm done. Like, I'm done with this company. But it's not that, and I really think it makes sense in Tom Sawyer Island there. So we'll see. But I get that the audience reaction was muted, because if this is really what we get for Beyond Big Thunder, I think that's going to be a little bit disappointing. But let me ask you the broader question here. So we've talked about what's coming. When Josh D'Amaro announced this, he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but really, what is Frontierland but the frontiers that are in our mind?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
okay.
So let me just say, Disney has now given up on the concept of Frontierland, right? And we've talked about this over the last couple of shows. This pretty much makes it official. Frontierland, as the original concept, is gone, right?
I mean, if you look at what we're now looking at, for example, Tiana's Bayou Adventure next to Big Thunder, which is just down the street from a Country Bears that sings the Disney song catalog.
Contemporary songs, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yes, this is not a celebration of the American West, but
nope.
But again, let's remember that when you came into the Magic Kingdom, you walked up a street from turn of the century America with a castle at the end of the street. I mean, you're making justifications or qualifications the whole time you're in the park. It's like, yeah, that works. Shut up.
All right, Jim Schull, let me throw this idea at you to discuss. So if Cars does go into Rivers of America, it also means the end of Liberty Square, because Haunted Mansion is going to be the gateway to Villains Lands, which we'll talk about shortly. But then the only Liberty Square attraction left will be Hall of Presidents, and that itself is the lowest rated attraction in Walt Disney World. So if they put this in Rivers of America, they can eventually reclaim the Hall of Presidents land and retheme it to something else. Thoughts?
Well, they have moved a little bit, though, in the other direction of, recently, didn't they add the Ichabod crane?
They did, to a Liberty Square, yeah.
To Liberty Square, and there is some love for that, for that restaurant.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's, we always can play these games of, if this happens and this happens. There is a certain amount of love for Liberty Square. It's one of those things where the company goes to shut it down because no one goes until they announce they're going to shut it down. Then people say, "Don't you dare!"
Yeah.
And so this
Yeah.
is the rabbit hole that we go down, and I don't think even Disney understands exactly or has all the ideas mapped out. Because, for example, the last two DCAs, they've said, "Here's blue sky."
Yeah.
This DCA was anything but that. I mean, Josh D'Amaro, who, and by the way, we haven't talked about the fact that Mr. Hill driving almost ran Josh D'Amaro over on the way to the Anaheim Convention Center.
I can't believe you guys didn't get in after that.
Well, but to his credit, Josh made eye contact and waved and smiled. So it's all good.
There you go.
But backing up, you have this blue sky, you have this concept development, but that doesn't mean that you can line all the planes on the runway to take off at the same exact time.
Sure.
So when I look at the Cars Land, I think that's still an idea that is floating out there, but that there's some ideas I've seen that look more like sure things, like, book your trip now to come to DCA to see their e-ticket, book your trip now for Door Coaster. But things that are further out there, I'm not sure that you can say, yep, I'll be there. I'll walk in the park in 2031 and I'll see Cars Land or the next thing on the list.
Let me just go on the record as saying I'll be absolutely fine if they get rid of Liberty Square. That's fine. All right.
Okay.
And you had mentioned
you royalist, you.
Well, I mean, the other thing is, and I'll stop talking about this, is the Hall of Presidents is A, politically charged, B, no one goes there, C, they have to update it every 4 years anyway. So it's got a certain amount of maintenance for not a lot of return. It just makes sense to get rid of the land. We'll stop there. And what I think is going to happen, again, we just talked about this, but Haunted Mansion will become the gateway to a new Villains Land, which was confirmed as coming to Walt Disney World. So we knew this was coming. The timing was a surprise. And we knew it was coming because, Jim Hill, you and I had talked about a video that our own Christina Harrison had done on June 24th. Yep. Showing the Disney executive standing in that area between the Rapunzel bathrooms and Haunted Mansion, which is the strangest place for a conference meeting I've ever seen. But that's basically going to be the entrance to Villains Land, we think. Guys, here's the thing, though. One piece of concept art, and it was basically a Rorschach test for what you think should be in Villains Land. Is there anything definitive that concept art says?
Well, no, Len, it is classic Disney concept art. I mean, mind you, I was standing there with Tim Grassi, and we were like, okay, now that looks like a piece of coaster track. Or on the other hand, that looks like, all right, that might be a street, that might be a store, but the only thing that's missing from this image is the hot air balloon that they typically throw into these things.
Exactly, in the distance, clouds everywhere,
I always like a rainbow myself, but
the thing that let me just say here, because I did see the bit of Coaster Trek as well. Disney has the opportunity here to do the funniest thing imaginable, make it a 2-track coaster based on Maleficent and challenge Universal to a dueling dragons coaster.
All right.
I'm so glad you said that.
I was texting Shul earlier with lines that I was just throwing away from the show, and I'm like, I could totally work for this company.
Okay.
Totally. So here's the deal about that. Again, this is a Rorschach test, and that's why it's both great and a danger. But when I look at this piece of artwork, I do see a coaster, and I sort of put on my Imagineering hat, thinking, what if you had a Thorn coaster? What if you had supports that looks like, you go into the thorn forest of Maleficent, because you do see the dragon.
You do?
The dragon is in there. The usual suspects are there. Plus, as every good land needs, this one has an icon. It's a actually a very beautiful twisted castle. And what else this has, I have no idea. And I'm not sure the Imagineers completely have that project scope nailed down themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it looks fantastic from a mood setting perspective, but beyond that, not a lot of specifics. But that's fine. You know what they said we're going to get something. It's within 5 years. I'm willing to see what they come up with too. And don't forget, they have another D23 in 2 years that we should probably get more announcements on.
Yes, this is true.
All right, let's continue on with things that were a surprise. Monstropolis coming to Hollywood Studios. Did not see that coming.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Hill, your reaction to this?
Well, not to pat myself on the back, but in 2008, we've told this story on the show about how the cast member portal that for 8 hours a video promoting a Monstropolis coaster that was originally supposed to be built at the studios in Soundstage 1, where, as Mr. Schul pointed out, that's no longer available because that's where the third track for Toy Story Midway Mania opened up. But again, I learned about this in 2008, but Disney pulled down the video after just 8 hours and it was never built. So it was like Hillsman and the Tequila again. So 15 years later, finally, like, all right, I was proven right. And I will try to be not too obnoxious about it.
I did note I couldn't find it in the show notes, but we did talk about this in the last year as a possible piece of real estate for the door coaster. And speaking of real estate, where is this going? So they said Monstropolis Land, not just an attraction, and the concept art seems to show city facades.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal on that. I had some good conversations on the show floor, and one of the things I talked to the person who's leading the Monstropolis effort is, he said it's a full Monstropolis. It's the city of Monstropolis. So looking at the model, it's an enormous building for the door coaster, but in front of that is this enormous complete city. And you really couldn't have the city without the sushi restaurant. You really have to have a character greeting. You know, I'm waiting to see the toilets, but that's that's something you can have fun with. And you're going to have a big draw, but to build something like that takes a lot of real estate. So the question,
it does.
I have some information now. I have the photographs, and due diligence is going to lead me to try to figure out something that scale. Where can you put it? It's not a case of will you build it, but it's where could you build it?
And really, if you look at the Google Maps for Hollywood Studios, there's really two prime locations that it could go into. One is the Star Wars Launch Bay area and the area behind that, sort of adjacent to Rock and Roller Coaster. And so, Jim Schul, what are the pros and cons of that location?
Well, the pros is there's a lot of land. Now, the con is don't tell the executives who park there, because that's right next to the admin building for that park. So that's maybe the down. But they do have that parking garage, and there is available space. I understand in that parking garage. It's a bit of a schlep, but it's fine.
If it came down to a question of inconveniencing some executives for a bucket of money, I would say good luck parking at the Lime parking garage at Disney Springs and taking the shuttle over to your job at Hollywood Studios. Jim Hill?
Yeah, another thing worth noting here is that this is an area that the company has invested money in recently. I mean, for example, we just heard about the revival or the reimagining of the Voyage of the Little Mermaid show going into the old theater. Likewise, upstairs at the old Catwalk Bar. This is where the company built one of 4 on-property Club 33s. And so
my lawyer says I don't know what you're talking about.
There we go. But the fact that you have those pieces that the company has spent money on, so not going to touch those. So it's like, where do you go with those 2 pieces being you can't use these? Where do you then go?
Yeah.
That's what intrigues me about this whole bit of where is there enough real estate to do this giant Monstropolis, both the ride and a neighborhood that puts you in the world of the Monsters Inc. movies.
A land.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's completely replacing Animation Courtyard for 2 reasons, Jim. The one you mentioned about them already investing in Voyage of the Little Mermaid. Number 2, they have Disney Junior there, and the park needs things for small children. So those aren't going away.
They do.
Which means Launch Bay.
But think about it. Those are, in a lot of ways, between the Playhouse Disney show and the meet and greets there. I mean, that's you could literally recreate that anywhere in the park.
Well, you could, but let's back up the truck for a moment. Where you're talking about is originally when it was opened, the Soundstage restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's a kitchen for that restaurant, and that kitchen actually backs up to the cast commissary, the old cast commissary.
Oh, God,
If you look in Google Earth, you'll look straight down. You see a round, semi-round building. That was the cast commissary when that park opened. And of course, directly above is the D20 or the Club 33 that we just talked about a second ago. So that
No
building,
idea what you're talking about.
and not to mention leaving out the old Brown Derby. So that
Right.
building
Yeah,
is
Brown
all of a
Derby's not going
caps-
anywhere.
No, if
Yeah.
you touch anything in that building, you're touching all of that
No,
building.
yeah, no. No.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't think that's changing. All right. The other area that it could go into, and I know I'm speaking of touching third rails here, Muppets Courtyard. They could demolish Muppets and put Monstropolis there. And I'm gonna be the guy in the black hat here and say I think they should demolish Muppets Courtyard, get rid of Muppets, and put Monstropolis
Okay,
there.
Len, I know where you live, and I'm coming to your house
yeah.
tonight. So, expect flaming torches and
There we go.
pitchforks,
Oh,
Yeah. So I mean, here's the thing. So replacing Star Wars Launch Bay with Monstropolis does allow Disney to consolidate all the Star Wars stuff into 2 areas instead of 3, right? But replacing Muppets Courtyard makes sense if Disney wants to build a land proper. And again, I told you guys during the show, the concept art shows city building facades. The only place in the park that already has existing city building facades and restaurants is Muppets Courtyard.
Well, except I'm going to throw a red blanket here.
And it's
That's
a bigger,
not a
it's-
city
it's-
facade that looks like Monstropolis.
It's amazing what you can do with stucco these days. That's what I'm told.
All right, and just
I'm
I know
pitching
where
it,
you live.
I think.
I know where you live.
one other thing I just want to put out there. Now, remember, when they were building Galaxy's Edge, they actually took the hot air balloon.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
that was
yeah.
replicated out of the Great Muppet Caper off of the top of the
Right.
Muppet 3D theater because it was going to visually intrude into the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And if you look at the Monsters Inc., the door hanger building, I mean, that's going to visually intrude on downtown Orlando, let alone the Galaxy's Edge.
Wherever that
All
goes,
right,
it's gonna be dominant.
I saw your point, right? But here's my thing. If it's going to visually intrude, right? Could you paint it to look more like sort of the brutalist architecture of Galaxy's Edge, or can you somehow paint that to look like Sunset Boulevard? And of the two, Jim, you could probably make it look more like Galaxy's Edge, which means Muppets Courtyard.
All right.
I cede your point.
Okay.
All right.
Hang on a couple of weeks, folks. There'll be a line for this in Vegas. We can all bet on it.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Exactly. Other thing, we got more details on Tropical Americas here, including a confirmation that we have the Indiana Jones ride, the carousel themed to is it Encanto?
Yeah, it's and I'm blanking it's Mirabelle's young cousin who has the animal ability that I think once upon a time this was supposed to feature all of the animals that he could charm and he could talk to from the Encanto film. But what's interesting when you look at the concept art, it's actually celebrating Disney wild animals like, say, Kaa from the Jungle Book and Timon and Pumbaa from The Lion King, and even characters like Nigel the Pelican from Finding Nemo. But you were mentioning
and Kevin.
They
had
And Kevin, I saw I saw Kevin as a ride vehicle. That's great.
But you wanted to point out that these are being done in a very specific folk art style, right?
Well, yes, and it's one that's indigenous to tropical America, which is Alhambra. And I happen to have a collection of those at home, so I know where I speak. But they're little softwood, tiny figures, and they're extractions or abstractions of native animals that you'd find in tropical America.
Remember, you used to be able to get these inside the Mexico Pavilion in Epcot for a long time, right?
Yeah. Well, back in the day, but they're brightly painted. They're very friendly. They're lots.
I have a few,
lots of fun. So. And Animal Kingdom does not have a carousel, and actually they would be the second one because only Magic Kingdom has a carousel, but not the other two. Epcot or the studio.
Right.
So this would bring a carousel to the animal kingdom.
So we knew that Dinosaur was becoming an Indiana Jones ride. We did hear that it's going to be a completely new story
Yeah.
for the ride. So not a clone from Adventureland and Disneyland.
No, it's supposedly leaning into Mayan mythology, and that we're going to get
Fantastic.
an entirely different big bad that Indy's going to go up against. So it will be interesting to see what gets delivered there.
And the village itself, Dinoland, is being rethemed to the village of Coco. Is that correct?
Well, no, this is the village of Encanto. This is
Sorry.
In fact, the icon that's going to draw you deeper into the land is the home of the Madrigal family from, again, in Encanto.
Right. And the interesting thing here, Jim, and I was texting Jim Hill during the D23 announcements for this. My big question was this: the original concept art showed a boat ride.
It did,
but the concept art now does not show a boat. It shows people sitting on something, but the ride system itself is remarkably not defined. So what kind of a ride vehicle, what kind of a ride system are we looking at here for this?
Well, actually, no, again, I hate to be the one who scoots out on the limb here, but what I have heard is that basically the Encanto experience is supposed to be trying to replicate for Disney's Animal Kingdom what Mystic Manor is for Hong Kong Disneyland, with the idea that you make your way. I mean, in a weird sort of way, if you've been on Remy, you understand this.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to a station, you board a vehicle, four passenger vehicles are dispatched at the same time. Mm-hmm. Only in this case, you are going through the Madrigal family home. Each of the daughters, you get to go to their rooms and see what their abilities are, and then at one point, supposedly, you then duck behind the walls and you enter the space where Bruno has been hiding all of this time, and you of course get your big "We Don't Talk About Bruno" musical moment.
Oh, fantastic. So trackless ride system.
There we go. So again, in fact, if you look at the concept art, you can see it's two sets of four passengers going into a Madrigal themed show scene.
Yeah, and the model has not just the casa, the house that the Encanto family live in, but also the show building behind it. Mm-hmm. And you get a sense of scale.
And notice that that's a 3-story show building. Are we talking about multiple stories here for this experience?
No, I think you're looking at typically you'd have something where you'd have the big scenes that require high bay spaces would have the high bay space.
Yeah, I mean, there were. I mean, that was again. Remember the concept of the Encanto was that the Madrigals lived in a magic house where, I mean, sometimes you'd enter rooms where it's like Doctor Who. It's bigger on the inside.
Got it.
Yeah, and looking at the model, one of the things that's jumped out at me, Len, was the queue is off to the left. Mm-hmm. So you approach the house, but you never actually enter the house proper. You go near the house, and there's a queue and a garden, and eventually you make your way inside, and you'll board your vehicles and then explore the house. But in reality, that building is kind of like the Haunted Mansion at Magic Kingdom at Disney World. You never really go up those steps to go inside the house.
Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, okay. So in this, so I put all of the concept art in the show notes, folks. In here, the thing that Jim is talking about to the left would be in the bottom center of the image. That is the queue. I can see people in it now. All right, that's pretty interesting.
But on the cheerful note, Hector and the guys, what was the name of their shop?
Oh, Chester and Hester's Dinorama.
Yeah, that building survived.
Yeah.
Under new management.
There you go.
Under new management here now.
Okay.
That's fine. All right, so that looks really, really good. And they said at D23 that work on this is going to start immediately, if not sooner, right? So we should. Yeah. But Dinosaur is going to be open a little while longer than everything else.
Yeah,
I guess that's a capacity play. Yeah,
they made a very big deal with this D23 about these are shovel-ready projects, and
right.
With Animal Kingdom, it's like this is not a drill. This is happening like immediately.
Right.
Well, and wouldn't that make perfect sense because the area that they're talking about building the Encanto ride, that's the old Dinorama area, and the coaster's already
Right.
gone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to go out there when there's nothing there to start to dig it up.
Exactly, and we know that they've already got construction trailers behind that area
Oh, absolutely.
for project management ready to go. All right, let's finish up at Magic Kingdom. A couple of other things: new Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run mission. This one includes Grogu, that's Baby Yoda, and the Mandalorian. So the big thing that I got out of this, guys, was as theme park nerds, this means Disney has officially ended the original timeline concept for Galaxy's Edge, and that means we can eventually see Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia on Batuu, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a noble effort. I mean, look, Kathleen Kennedy. Remember when they originally designed Star Wars Land for the studio, you were supposed to go to Tatooine. You know, it was supposed to be the world of New Hope. But Kathleen basically went to the Imagineers and said, "Look, we're after the next generation of Star Wars fan." And so the notion was, can we build these or tie them to the new trilogy, and to watch little girls interact with Rey and that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, Rey's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, but there isn't just as much love for that trilogy as there is, for example, for The Mandalorian or the Ahsoka limited series or the Book of Boba Fett, and that's what we're about to see go into this ride film.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they may have just shot themselves because the original concept, as noble as it was, it limited the number of characters they could have in their land, and they have a rich catalog
Exactly.
of characters that people want to see.
Yeah.
And this,
Right.
is a big step to breaking that seal and crossing the streams where you could have a Kylo Ren in one section and a Darth in the other. I'm waiting for that SmackDown, by the way. So it's coming.
Okay.
Let me just say that now that the timeline is officially open to include the original 3 films of the original trilogy, and we have a vacant Galactic Star Cruiser sitting a quarter of a mile away within walking distance of this land, it opens up the possibility of a Darth Vader character breakfast. And let me just say right now, guys, you might as well start clicking on Disney's website right for reservations right now, because you're never going to get in. Darth Vader character meal. Tell me about it. Okay.
I want to say a
Now
Stormtrooper.
but now it's possible, right? Now it's
No,
possible.
tell me it's not going to be a buffet where I have stormtroopers in chef's hats and aprons serving me my scrambled eggs and French
This is what I'm
toast.
saying. They could just line up the trucks full of money and just ship it in. Yeah. Okay.
I find your lack of waffles disturbing.
Oh, oh,
So,
That's what I'm saying. It just writes itself.
It
Guys,
does,
come on.
it does. It does. I'll give it.
All right, 2 other things. Spaceship Earth Corporate Lounge got announced. This is, I guess, the old Siemens Lounge,
yeah.
which I haven't been to in forever.
Yeah, no.
Beautiful lounge, beautiful
is.
location. You
It's
can
an amazing
overlook all of
space.
the new gardens.
And this joins the Pirate Theme Lounge, which we got a little bit more concept art for, and that's going to open in Adventureland. Both of these things are supposed to open in 2025. Fantastic. The last little bit for Walt Disney World, correct me if I'm wrong, was we got slightly more detail on the test track redo. We heard that the queue is going to have 6 areas, and each of the 6 areas is going to celebrate the vehicles and the people behind them that push the envelope and help get people to our next chapter in our emotion journey. And also there are show scenes that show how our life and relationships are served through the ability to be mobile through cars.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that means, and I don't know that how we're going to reflect on spending quality time with family and friends as we go 60 miles an hour outside. But okay, you know what? That's why the Imagineers are paid the big bucks.
There we go. There we go.
This is true.
All right, so let's move over to Disney California Adventure, which also got a lot of love at D23. First thing I wanted to note is we got more information about the Avatar ride that's coming to that park. So first question, Jim Schull, where in the park are we thinking about for this?
Well, it could go in one or 2 places. You could take
Okay.
out something that's already there that's low performing. And by that, Hollywood back.
I was going to say Hollywood back. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, other than that, you'd have to bite the bullet and cross Disneyland Drive and, go into one of the old parking lots and break ground there and take DCA across the street. No,
Yeah,
but-
so of those 2 options, which one is more budget friendly to an Imagineer?
Oh, pull the bulldozers into Hollywood backlot tomorrow.
All right. And Jim Hill, what is the concept art that we got? What is that describing?
Well, again, this is if Navi River Journey. In fact, I think it was you and Mr. Schul when we were pre-gaming pointed out if Navi River Journey from Animal Kingdom had a baby with Shanghai Disneyland's Pirates of the Caribbean. I mean, it looks to be the exact same large capacity ride vehicle. But the other note that they put out there is that you are in the beautiful world of Pandora, but this is also a dangerous world. In fact, in this piece of concept art, you're kind of in the night jungle and you're surrounded by these rather sinister beasts who I don't think
everything looks hungry. Everything looks hungry in this concept art.
So.
You mentioned that it's a cross between Navi River Journey and Pirates of the Caribbean, and I note that the boat itself is looks like even larger capacity than Pirates of the Caribbean. It looks like it's 4 across in 6 rows, so 24 people.
No.
This is a people moving.
Well, and that's the thing that if you've ever seen the ride vehicle for Shanghai Disneyland's version of Pirates, this is similar capacity. And more to the point, it's a ride vehicle that can do some very interesting things.
Yeah, it can spin, it can rotate, it can speed up, it can slow down, and that was all in service in Shanghai, where they needed you to pivot like an Omnimover toward a screen, so you could spend quality time in front of a screen or quality time with the animatronic of Jack Sparrow.
Yes, this looks like I'm glad for 2 things. One, we're getting a boat ride in DCA. Number 2, it's not a direct clone of Navi River Journey, which, to give Disney credit here, nothing here is a clone.
No.
So far. Yeah.
No,
I was joking with you guys before the D23 announcements, and I said if Walt Disney World gets any clones, I'm going to find the intern who knows the password to the copier machine at Imagineering and take it away from them. But again, to their credit, this has been a really, really good D23, very solid stuff. No clones. The other thing that was announced was Avengers Infinity Defense for DCA Avenger Campus. And we were talking about this before the show, and we said it looked like the Sum of All Thrills had a baby with something like Forbidden Journey.
Well, now what's interesting is that they actually announced what is it? Well, first of all, they confirmed the King Thanos ride. That I want to say, wasn't it the D23 Expo 4 years ago when they first walked this out?
Yeah.
So now, I mean, we not only have in fact, remember, Len, when we were in DCA back in March of last year, Jim stood us in front of the building and explained that, for example, where we intued where the actual entrance of the ride was, and Jim's like, no, that's a store. That sort of laid out what was going on there, but there is this giant super deluxe e-ticket that's going in, but there is also, to its credit, what you're mentioning, the thing that looks very much like Sum of All Thrills Kuka Arm, but this is actually a secondary attraction to add capacity to the land. I want to say it's called Stark Labs. I mean, in fact, what was kind of interesting, they had a photograph of Bob Iger and Robert Downey Jr. actually riding or seated in this thing.
Sure, as one does.
Yeah, as one does. But this will also be in the land, again, with the notion of we need some additional capacity.
Which actually, is brilliant in one way. This flight Stark Lab, as shown in the artwork, sits outside in the land. It sits outside, so it has strong visual appeal that adds connect to the land in a land that everything else is inside. I mean, think of it. The Spider-Man ride Reroad is inside of a show building. The new Infinity ride is going to be inside of a show building. You can't see what you're about to get into. There's not a lot of movement or action in Avengers Campus, and so Flight Lab will give them that.
And
interesting.
Just think of it as a Dumbo that shakes your fillings out.
Exactly.
But there's no truth. Do they collect the money afterward? Whatever change they vacuum it up at night.
Okay.
That would be something that Tony Starks would do. So that I get that. All right, and so let's finish up on our domestic stuff with the big announcement from Disney Cruise Line that nobody saw coming, and that's 4 new ships. added to the fleet, launching from 2027 to 2031. Did anyone see this coming?
I have to admit, when that slide came up, it was like, what are they smoking over at the Disney Cruise Line? I mean, like, just in the
Whatever it is, they're making money on it.
Oh,
whatever.
No doubt, no doubt. I mean, that's the thing. When you actually drill down into the cruise line numbers and what they are doing capacity wise and the guest approval rating. I mean, nothing in the Disney company is as beloved by has more repeat customers than the cruise line. But four more ships between now and 2031? Where are they going?
So let me point out two things. One is that two of those four ships might be replacements for the Magic and Wonder, which will be 30 years old by the end of the decade. And as Laurel points out, generally cruise ships don't last as long as a Leonardo DiCaprio girlfriend, which has an age limit of 25 years old.
Okay.
So two of those might be replacements, but still two new cruise ships. And yeah, Jim Hill, to your point, where are these going? Yeah. Where are they sailing? Yeah. I don't know. It's fascinating to look at, though. But I mean, and the idea of four new cruise ships is a lot of fun. Again, with everything else that we talked about, there's a bunch of unknowns here. Is it going to be a new ship class? So the last couple have been Wish class ships. The next couple are Wish class ships. Is this going to be bigger? Are they going to be smaller? Are they going to be different? We don't know, but hopefully we'll know more soon.
Okay.
All right, on to other parks around the world. Disney Adventure World in Paris looks like it's getting a Lion King ride. And the smart aleck comment that I got when they revealed this concept art, which looks like a log flume ride, was, oh yeah, a log flume ride, just like the one in the movie.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
I remember that. Right. That was my favorite sequence.
But Jim Scholl, describe what's going on here.
Well, it very much looks like the beloved Splash Mountain artwork when that was released for Disneyland decades ago. What's interesting about it, Len, is it's showing people in line seating. It's a great example.
So it's three people in a row, sort of like
three people in a row.
Walt Disney World Space Mountain.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a great example of concept art and how things fall out of sequence, because if you turn to the model, which is in the show notes, you'll see they've designed a model of the actual ride vehicle, and there it's not in line. It's how many seats across?
It's 4 rows with 3 people in each row. So we're going from a ride vehicle with 3 people to a ride vehicle with 12 people.
Yeah, so you're basically dropping a pirate's boat off the side of the flume instead.
The way that I look at it is this: you're going through the savannah, right? There's all kinds of dangerous things there. The more people in that boat, the better your odds of survival, right?
Well,
it's just it's herd instinct, right? In fact, if you could wear a zebra pattern while you're on the boat, it will confuse the predators even more. So,
but that's it. Another thing worth noting here is that if this concept art suggests that this ride is not based on the 1994 hand-drawn version.
Right.
But rather the Jon Favreau photorealistic version from 2019, which, by the way, that franchise gets extended this December with Barry Jenkins' Mufasa, The Lion King, the prequel.
Right. And here's my question, and Jim Scholl, you've experienced the winters in France. Outdoor boat ride in France in the winter. How's that going to be received?
Well, they could be, the drinks will be antifreeze instead of of Diet Coke. It's not, it's not that pleasant to be out there because, again, Margraville is in northern Europe. People don't think of it that way, but it gets cold at 4 p.m. All the park lights are on. At 2 o'clock, they turn them on, and everyone walks around in their full winter regalia. So, do you really want to be on that ride 4 months a year? One of the challenges I think they're going to have is how dry can you make a log flume or water ride?
Yeah.
And
we've seen with Tiana's Bayou Adventure in Walt Disney World that they can turn off the water cannon, and we've seen with Kali River Rapids when it gets cold, that'd be the time to do maintenance and stuff like that. So even if it's down a couple months of the year, during the coldest time of the year, that would probably be fine. But during spring and summer.
Yeah, and this is true. But, again, going back to the model, we see the icon is Pride Rock and the foreground element. But we have to look at is the background, because in the background behind Pride Rock is an enormous show building. And it was such a big
Right.
building that in the model that's on the show floor, they don't show the entire model. There's just this weird cutoff where they just said, okay, we've got a display case this big and no bigger.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that piece of the show building, hack it off.
And am I also the only one who thinks that as you're going up the load hill, is that where they do the song "Be Prepared"? Are you prepared?
Oh, be prepared. But the reality is, this is a great example of logic, theme park logic and Disney park logic, and how the logic works in different places. Because having lived in France, very common that people in France will go to Algeria, they'll go to Morocco, they go to the west coast of Africa to get out of the rain, the wet. So that has a lot of appeal, and that's why their Adventureland, their Magic
Oh,
Kingdom,
yeah.
is not tropical. It's Moroccan. It has, mud huts and
Oh, yeah,
stone
yeah.
and whatnot. So, going that direction for the Lion King Pride Lands, which is the
Makes sense,
working
yeah.
title, absolutely makes sense.
Fantastic. All right. So, Jim Scholl, did they give a timeline for this as well? Is this also within 5 years?
Well, reality is, they've already announced, and surprisingly, that the opening of Adventure World was 2025 was the working date, and now they've officially said nope, nothing of the sort. It's 2026. So logically, you're not going to follow up Lion King that close to the opening of Adventure World. When
Okay, so
exactly?
maybe a couple years after that.
I'd say
Okay.
you'd be looking at 3-4 years, so maybe 30, even 31.
Interesting. Okay, we'll see. The other big announcement was Shanghai is getting a Spider-Man coaster. It looks like, right?
Yes, yeah, there are plans on that, and they released the official first artwork on that, several pieces, and from the look of that, it looks like Shanghai's about to get a launched coaster.
And is this similar in coaster design, Jim Scholl, to say Tron? Like, what would be the thing that Americans would be most familiar with from this sort of?
Len, I think it's probably closer to the Velocicoaster, which is
Okay,
over
okay.
in Jurassic World at Universal's Islands of Adventure.
And why do you say that?
Well, looking at the track, looking at
Mhm.
the launch mechanism, again, coaster nerd that I am, I look at artwork that shows me coaster backbone, and I look
Right.
up, give me a good backbone any day. Then, that's a square is a B&M and round is an Intamin, and we can go on and on. But this
Oh, okay,
smells
okay.
like Intamin launch coaster.
Okay, and you noticed before the show we were talking about the fact that the concept art does not show shoulder restraints on the coaster.
No, the artwork, Len, that's been released shows a pretty aggressive looking coaster, but the guests only are secured by a lap bar.
Right. And that would be like Velocicoaster, which we've talked about Jim Hill on the show. The fact that there is no shoulder restraint, that it's all lap bars and very, very snug, very secure ones, like that makes the experience, I think, better.
And when you say better, terrifying.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I'm going for there. Yeah,
Oh,
terrifying.
okay,
Exactly.
yes.
Well, your idea of thrilling is very different from mine, Mr. Testa.
But still, it looks really, really good. I know when I go on my tour of the Asian parks, I'll be sure to catch this one in. Besides this, so I think I've hit all of the things that I wrote down. Is there anything here that we missed, Jim Hill, in terms of announcements or details?
Okay, the one that and honestly I am the most excited about, because the Tower of Terror that is going to be built at Hong Kong Disneyland as part of their Avengers campus. It is a Spider-Man take on this material, and the notion is that
Oh.
you are in this version of when it comes for that plummeting moment, that you have been in between a battle between Spider-Man and Doc Ock, and Doc Ock cuts the cable, and so when you're plummeting, it's because and then suddenly have that boing moment. It's because Spider-Man has suddenly webbed your vehicle to prevent you from crashing at the bottom of the shaft, and it's like it is such a smart,
Fantastic.
fun
Yeah.
looking update. of Tower. I mean, again, hell, I would book a plane to Hong Kong just to get to go on this ride when it goes live.
And a smart move, and what's a smart move about this is that you're going to have a Spider-Man coaster in Shanghai, but a Spider-Man version of Tower of Terror in Hong Kong. So again, same properties, but very different rides based upon those same properties.
Right, and it didn't make sense for them to export the Tower of Terror concept because the Twilight Zone show itself doesn't have any meaning in the Asian parks, right? It's just not something that
not
that
at
they
all.
grew up with.
No, not
but
even
Spider-Man
France.
makes sense.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, think
Barely
about the
France.
tower that got built at Tokyo Disney Seas, where we got the whole Harrison Hightower backstory, because it's like,
Right.
who is this Rod Serling man, and why does he keep smoking? You know, so-
And then Jim Schull, what else do you want to add to this before we close?
Oh, I just think they've got to state the obvious after two D23s where they stood on the stage and said, "We're thinking about this," and
Right.
basically throwing out the chum into the audience about getting to get a reaction. It's such a nice show to walk away with some real meat, some real proposals. And as Josh said when he mounted the stage, he said, "This is not blue sky. Everything you're seeing here, we want to build."
Yeah. And one of the best D23s we've seen in a long, long time. They did everything they were supposed to do and then threw in a bunch more surprises. Love to see stuff like this. Very excited to see how they develop this. And we still have a lot of open questions, which will provide us endless shows going forward.
That it will.
So
That it
fantastic.
will.
And guys, thanks very much for making yourselves available. I know you've worked every day for the last 3 days, and now we're recording late at night, but thanks for doing it.
Glad to do it, Len. And again, next time we got to get you out here for this.
Indeed.
Yeah, next time.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So it'll give us a fighting chance against Josh tomorrow's jogging routine.
Yeah,
Sure.
we know where. Yeah, we know where.
This time for sure.
Yeah, we'll be stalking. Stalking is not our lingo.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for this special D23 wrap-up show today. Thanks for subscribing and supporting the Disney Dish over at patreon.com/Jim Hill Media. Don't forget, on next Monday's show, come on and lift your glass. You've won your own free pass. It's stories about Fantasyland's Be Our Guest restaurant, done in perfect taste. You can find more of Jim at jimhillmedia.com, more of Jim Schull. Where, Jim Schull?
You can find me over my new YouTube channel, Disney Journey with Jim Schull.
And you can find more of me, Len, at touringplans.com. We're produced spectacularly by Eric Kersey, who will be selling his Save Millard Fillmore Hall of Presidents t-shirts on Etsy any minute now. While Eric's doing that, please go into iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim and Jim, this is Len. We'll see you on the next show.